Hey, welcome to episode 204 of the Titanforge Podcast. I'm Dranos, joined by Tuttles.
Hey, what's up? We're back.
And Trell.
Yo, yo, yo.
Yo, yo, yo. This week we have some news, some MDI stuff to talk about, some questions to go through, but all in all, it should be a fairly short episode. I'm, of course, still missing a tooth as well. They took out the old one and they screwed in, a screw in there. There's a screw there, but it has to heal before they can put the new tooth on top of it. So that's going to be me for the next couple episodes, probably.
So this isn't like a cheap endeavor to get a tooth replaced, right?
It's not the least cheap thing, but I also don't spend that much money on other stuff usually. So these things happen.
This seems really unfortunate. Actually,
these things happen.
Well, luckily you have the great American healthcare system.
That's true. They've always got your back.
They told me that in socialist Canada, you'd be waiting months for a tooth.
Yeah. They don't grow them up there on trees like we do.
True. California exports teeth, I think.
That's true.
Is that actually
That's
true?
true. Actually, I put this one under my pillow and I didn't get any money for it, though, which that worked when I was a kid.
You should call your parents and let them
know. Something is deeply fucked up. I don't know. It's sad. Anyways, we also have, let's see. Oh, there's a Mimosas and M Plus event again happening for anybody interested this weekend in our Titanforge Discord at noon Pacific on the 24th. That's the Saturday. So anybody interested, do go check that out. But let's jump into the news. And step one of the news is Fyr'alath. We have Fyr'alath legendary bad luck protection updates, which there was a post that said they changed the values, and then there's a data mining post that's like, hey, at the same time they did this change and they did this blue post, these values that we didn't know what they meant changed in the data, which makes them think that this is the bad luck protection buff. And basically the TLDR is that it went from actually the mythic chance didn't change too much. The mythic increased chance and it went from like a baseline 5% on your first kill on mythic up to like 10% by your sixth kill to guaranteed on your, and then it just jumps all the way up to guaranteed at your 10th kill or 11th kill. And they like cut that back down. So now it's your, I guess, 7th kill that's guaranteed to drop the legendary on mythic, or your 15th on heroic. And it's never guaranteed on normal or LFR. It just gets more and more likely.
This shit is a straight up joke. Like, I can't believe that it got data mined. I'm actually surprised that it got data mined. But after having seen the numbers, this system sucks. Like, I'm thankful that I haven't had to play a class that is praying for a legendary either of these two seasons. Did your DK even have it yet?
I got mine right after this hotfix came in. I don't think I was quite guaranteed yet, but I was so I hit one of the like 10%-ish chances, plus whatever the lesser embers do. So that's the other thing that's added is we don't know what the lesser embers do, but it looks like they might be 0.6% additive. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know exactly how these numbers interact, right? Because when you kill on a difficulty, you should be getting the chances from the lower difficulties as well, and whether those are added all together and done as an additive chance or separate multiplicative rolls is actually pretty important for your expected number of kills to get something. And also whether the lesser ember or Fyr'alaths are additive as well, or whether they're, separate multiplicative rolls or a fifth separate multiplicative roll or whatever. All of that matters a lot. So I don't know. Here's what I'll say is these look like really low percentages, but in terms of like cumulative probability, the chance that you would have gotten it by, say, the 6th week, if you've done heroic every week, it's not 5%, right? It's all of those previous percentages added up, plus all the chances you got from the normal and LFR rolls that should have been happening on those kills, plus all of the lesser ember values.
I think those are integrated in.
No, they're. I don't think so. I think that this is only using the like within each difficulty percent.
Interesting.
That's at least I don't know. I don't remember for sure. Because Squishy was talking to me a bit about this. He's the person who made this article.
I mean, I talked to him a little bit about it. I didn't ask that part, I guess.
By the way, I'm glad I'm not a two-hander class this season either. It's like Getting the legendary is hard enough. And then once you even get the legendary, you have to do like a crazy amount of tedious grinding just to get the actual item after.
Yeah.
Like, that does not sound fun to me personally. And I think among our peers that play at a high level, they haven't really enjoyed it. I don't know about like the rest of our audience. I mean, if you guys really enjoyed it, let us know in the comments. I'm curious, actually.
Well, it's one of those things too that people that are like, oh, you should make it guaranteed for Mythic, and I don't even think that's like a real solution to the problem. Like, I think that maybe that's a bit better for, you know, those who are the most dedicated, right, who are the 1% players. But I don't think that that fixes the problem with the system as a whole, and that's especially not like, if I'm making a change, that's not the only change I'm making is making it guaranteed for Mythic. Like, that is ridiculous. I think the fact that you can't track, like, I think you're allowed to have some variance in it, but I think the fact that you can't track like when you're supposed to be getting it is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I do think that there should be some sort of like just the amount of even like normal or heroic kills. Because man, if you're telling me we're going into next season, you have to pick a character as your M+ character, so it's not going to be a character you're killing Mythic last boss on. Would you like that character to have a legendary that uses the system or not? Like, hell no, right? I would
absolutely not.
If I was somebody who had to pug every week a heroic, which I did several of the weeks we didn't kill Fyr'alath Mythic, I pugged heroic to try and get the axe, to, you know, try and get it, right? Because like that seems like the good thing to do, and that was like on a geared main character, and that was annoying and difficult, and like, man, if I was just like on an M+ alt or something, or a non-mythic rating character, I would hate to have one of these in any given season. Like, I'm actively hoping that my spec is just good without one of these, because if your spec is only good with the legendary like this season, like, oh man, that's miserable.
Now, I don't think everything needs to be deterministic in the game. I think we kind of talked about this some weeks, but this is definitely something that I think needs to be more deterministic on the players knowing when you're going to get it. And like what I wrote out in our show notes is basically like, I provided an alternative system where 10 embers are required to give you the quest to be able to, you know, get the weapon. Mythic, killing Fire Echo Mythic gives you 3 to 4. It can actually be variable. Doesn't really matter that much. Heroic gives you 2 to 3. Normal gives you 1 to 2. And LFR always gives you 1. That way, you know when you're getting it. Like, you know.
Yeah, well, so you're talking about making it more deterministic. You're also talking about buffing the average amount of time it takes you to get this by, like, 1,000% or something, right?
I think Heroic being guaranteed at 14 weeks is also just...
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, your change here of Heroic giving you 2 to 3, that would mean that you are guaranteed to get it by week 5 of Heroic, and you're expected to get it by week 4 of Heroic. They could just make that change with the percents, and it would also work, right? Like, if this percent was just 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, that would do the same thing. And we're talking about multiplying this by 20, right? We're talking about 20 times more drop rate. So I guess I would say, like,
yeah,
just making it deterministic isn't enough, right? Like, if they change this to you need 100 embers to make the axe, and you get 1 from your, actually you get 0 from your first heroic kill, 1 to 2 from your second, 2 to 3 from your third, 3 from your fourth, like, would you like that system? Is deterministic.
Well, there's also a problem with how fast it came, I think, which is also an important variable. Yes, I agree. But I think the fact that it's gated behind some invisible bad luck protection that you don't really know if it's working or not, and it's like... that, yeah, it kind of feels shitty, right? Because that's not the way that, like, the Wrath one even worked, right? And the Cataclysm ones, yeah? You, like, had to get items that were from the raid, yeah?
It depended on the one, but yeah, like, I mean, those had their own problems, though, like...
I mean, of course, the acquisition has always been a problem for Blizzard.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, the biggest thing is, like, man, this bad luck protection should just ramp a lot faster. That, I think it's fine to have but like, it should be guaranteed by a certain week, just because the bad luck protection should have ramped to 100%. And it shouldn't be like, oh, it ramps up slowly, and then, okay, if you haven't gotten it by chance, we're going to make it 100%. You know, like, I think it'd be fine if it ramped up to 100% linearly along this path on Heroic, and that way your cumulative chance, I mean, I guess even then I would probably want it to be, like, closer to, like, the 8th week or something. And then, like, the cumulative chance that you would have gotten it before then, like, you'd have to be pretty unlucky to not have gotten it by that point.
This didn't even start until after the first kill of Mythic happened, either.
Yes. So
which it varies some season, like how fast the fast boss of Mythic is gonna die, and it's not like that big of a deal, right? But it's like in a system that should apparently take 14 weeks for you to get the legendary. Not a huge fan.
With this particular model as well, so many people are going to get it only if they grind to the 100% guaranteed slot. Like, man, that is rough, because that's so... I think even for people on the Mythic slot, but especially for people that aren't rating Mythic and that are trying to get it on their 15th heroic kill, like for most of those people, it's not going to be exciting at that point when you get it. It's going to be like, actually, this kind of sucks. Wait, I still have to go do all these quests now that... Man, I kind of just wish that this didn't drop for me at all, and I had never tried to get this.
This is the 13th week, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Do you know Crit Cake, Dratnos?
I know the warrior, right?
Yeah.
The warrior player. He has 2 warriors he's been killing Fyr'alath on for the entire patch and has 0 legendaries on them still.
Yeah, I mean that's not unlikely with the old percentages, right? Like,
Oh, he just got it, I think. But
he got it this reset?
Post
he
hotfix
finally
probably,
got
right?
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Post hotfix it. All right.
It's really funny if you've watched him at all. Like every time he logs in to try to get his axe, he puts on a literal tinfoil hat. And it's
dude, I love how he dresses up in like the turtleneck. Has got like sunglasses on inside too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hope that they take another look at this rather than just making this like every patch is going to have one of these. Okay.
I mean,
okay.
Well, just to wrap it up, I think they were pretty close on the system. The problem is it just is taking so long with the bad luck protection, like we covered. I think it's the opposite problem would happen if everyone got it immediately. Then it's like just a purple item, not a true legendary, which I think is what their goal is to keep it as a legendary like item. So hopefully they just improve the process if they're going to keep it.
Do you want them to have legendaries? I'm actually kind of pro legendary. I actually think that it's cool.
I think they're cool as well. Yeah. I think if it's something that you're not going to get until the 4th month of the patch, like
that's
when you're trying by killing a heroic boss every week, which that's a heroic end boss every week is a lot of effort. That isn't good. That nothing is like, and it's one of those things as well where the cooler it is, the worse it is, because the worse it is to not have it for that long. So I don't know. Okay, next topic. We have a few hotfixes and stuff that came in. A couple of these were, I think this is the tinfoil MDI hotfixes or whatever, but pretty likely that these are also that. But did you guys see the Pallid Gorger stuff where they're just...
So apparently they fixed it like 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
The Gorgers? I wanted to make a video. Okay, so instead of like how this team timed this key, and obviously they were bug abusing, be like how this team depleted this key, and then I was thinking about Waker's Manor and just like slamming Witch RNG and Pallid Gorger melee people and getting stuck in the Soul Battle Goliath Thorns. I don't know. The fact that they can't fix the Gorgers meleeing people is a joke.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it must be so annoying.
The first fix they did made the Gorgers like act crazy, right? Like after they would bug out, they would instead just run away from the pack or something, like the opposite direction of players.
I heard about that. Yeah, they just would kind of like freak out like the witches did the one time whenever they started running around the room.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Dude, it must be so annoying to be the person like in charge of fixing that, and you'd think you fixed it, and then it just is 10 times worse.
They did make the witches stagnant though, right? They successfully did that.
Yeah.
So there's now,
thank God,
no witch in Huntsman's Lodge, and the witch is always back left.
Yeah, like that's right. Not the first spawn, but the one all the way. Yeah.
Second downstairs witch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's kitchen, and then I think it's up left.
Yeah.
And there's no longer RNG on whether they're a rune carver or a soul charmer, right?
Yeah. Each spot is a specific, such a good change. Like the witch RNG was a good thing to remove, just like the door RNG in that plays.
Soul Charmer on Fortified just made those pulls much harder. Like you proc a Soul Charmer and you go from, oh yeah, we need 1 melee kick per captain to, oh my god, we've procced a Soul Charmer. Oh no, start lining.
Yeah. I mean, at least you could line them. Like with a full range comp, it was actually easier to get a soul charmer if everyone was skilled enough to line the cast on you, but that requires a bunch of like extra UI stuff that the base game doesn't provide to know that. So
yeah, I mean, if you miss a line, then you just die, which is like too.
Then they fixed a bunch of other bugs, including the Darkheart Thicket World Quest bug, where mobs wouldn't spawn in the M+ version of Darkheart Thicket if the corresponding world quest was active. A bug that has been in the game since Darkheart Thicket has come out has finally been fixed. It's, that's pretty funny.
It was. I knew about this in Legion. It was really funny watching people discover this expansion. Like, where's the pack this week? Where'd it go? Did they remove it? Like, a bunch of people always think they were just removed it and then it comes back after a few days and they're like, what?
Yeah.
But no, it was just a world quest.
Yeah, really funny. There were a couple others like that as well. There are a couple other dungeons, right, where world quests would screw with something. I think that's true.
I think there was something.
Maybe it's just
I think it was Maw Souls.
It
might have been Maw.
Then the only other thing we have here, unless anybody has anything else on all the M+ hotfixes, is how's the raid doing? They've nerfed Tindral and Fyr'alath now several times each.
All right. So I'll lead this one since you guys both raid, and I think that Drynas probably has a lot of perspective as well. I keep reading people's opinions that Tindral is still overwhelmingly difficult. Like, obviously I didn't do the raid on Mythic, so I don't really have a great perspective of this. Is it still too hard?
So, I don't know because I also stopped raiding recently, but I like when I quit raiding, they nerfed Tindral the next week and I heard it was much easier. But now I've been slowly hearing that it's still like pretty difficult. Is that true?
So here's the prog stats page, and for those just listening along, the hotfix came out a bit over a month ago. In the 2 months before then, it was killed less than 200 times. Now it's been killed more than 600 times. So it certainly was nerfed a lot. There's a huge spike in kills right after that hotfix as well. So it is a lot easier than it was. Like, a lot easier. Like, this is one of the largest nerfs to a boss in terms of how much easier it made the boss. But it could still be too hard, right? It's kind of like, if you think about what sports do you guys like to watch? Do you guys like to watch any specific sports? Oh
yeah, the sport with the ball.
Okay, not a sports fan, Trell. What about you, Tettles?
Yeah, I watch wrestling, not like professional wrestling, like
that sport has balls.
Like actual wrestling. Well,
that sport does have balls.
That sport does have balls. That's a good point.
Okay, it's like if you think about how good like a Super Bowl winning football team was in any given year versus like a shitty team in the league that year.
Like a Canadian Football League team, like a CFL team?
Yeah, even that, or even the Detroit Lions in any given year or whatever. I don't know if that's still an accurate
Detroit Lions are good this year. The Detroit Lions are good
in previous years or whatever. I don't know.
Okay,
it's been a long time since I followed football.
That's a good point. Yeah,
but I remember people used to just dunk on them all the time.
30 years of not making the playoffs. You were actually pretty spot on.
Yeah. If you think about how those teams are compared to each other, it's like there's a world of difference, right? But if you go up against either team as a high school football team, you're going to get destroyed in the exact same way, right?
Yeah.
And to me, post-nerf and pre-nerf Tindral are kind of that. Like, they are both very differently difficult from each other, but they're both so far above the average cutting edge guild even still.
Okay.
Maybe not even the average cutting edge guild anymore, but like maybe the average guild that gets 8 out of 9 in any given tier. And the guilds that are capable of killing Spolderon, which is way below like an average cutting edge level, which means that so many of the people pulling Tindral are going to be still brickwalled on it.
Is this like Halandris? Do you remember Halandris? Okay, so Halandris had 2 massive nerfs.
Yeah.
Where the first one made it doable by basically all of our guilds.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had the second nerf, which made the bombs then 30 seconds, which was completely different, which made it a different fight.
Yeah.
Is this like similar to that where, it got nerfed a lot, where, most guilds are going to kill it on that nerf?
Yeah.
But then it's not like average cutting edge level guild.
I think so, yeah. Or Jailer as well. Jailer had like a couple rounds of nerfs before it had the one that deleted phase 3 and phase 4. And
That's right. I forgot
It was
about that.
also still really hard after those first few nerfs, but it was way easier if you'd killed it or were capable of killing it before that. So, yeah, I don't know. Tindral, it's tough. I don't know how you go about nerfing it further, but I think they probably, depending on when they want to release season 4, like the penultimate boss is doing a lot less kills than, let's see, how many did, I guess Aberrus is a bad example because it's kind of the opposite of this, but by the end of Aberrus, this site had more than twice as many Echo of Neltharion kills recorded, and it started plateauing near the end as well, so it's not like,
Yeah.
you know, that all the kills came in at the end of the season, which we're not at yet. Like, most of the kills had come in by this point, relatively.
Okay, Dorky actually typed something interesting in chat. He said, these bosses are way too overtuned. They need to stop releasing these kind of bosses. And I actually want to go to bat for Blizzard here. I think they're allowed to do bosses like this, and I think bosses like this are cool whenever they're really hard and they're super engaging for people. But they have to be a bit more diligent about nerfing them, especially if they are going to, like, you know, make them this challenging. And I think it's fine for them to be this hard, but they have to also be committed to be willing to just, like, hammer them occasionally.
Yeah, I've argued that before, but I think if you have to do like multiple guttings to a boss, one thing that starts really sucking about that is that a lot of guilds that killed Tindral will then have killed it just after a nerf. And that doesn't feel good, right? Like, all of the guilds that killed it in the few days after the January 15th hotfix are just going to have killed it for free because it was nerfed, right? Same with the Fyr'alath most recent nerfs, which I guess they don't have a dotted line for yet, but when they went from 8 seeds to 4 in the last phase, right? Like, all of those post big nerf kills, I think, are really rough. I don't know. To me, the thing that they should look at doing more is make more mechanics that are going to kill you in the first few weeks, but that aren't quite going to kill you when you have full gear. And it's tough because we're not actually that much more powerful when we have full gear, but stuff like even a beam hitting you on Tindral is like 1.8 million fire damage or something like that. Like, if that number was just 600k or something like that instead, or you nerfed that down to 600k and it didn't one-shot you anymore, and it was still like not survivable in the first few weeks, and maybe even that's something that they could nerf. Like, that way the fight at least wouldn't feel gutted in the same way that making it so that seeds go from 3 seconds, spawn a tree if you hit it twice, 16 seeds spawn, to 5 seconds, don't spawn a tree if you hit it twice, only 12 of them spawn. Like, that is a gutting of a mechanic that doesn't feel good if you've already progged one version and you kill it as soon as they change it to the other one. But I think if there was more stuff that, like, because I think Smolderon has a good vibe of this. Smolderon, if you get hit by a flame wave during early prog, you're dead. And if you get hit by a flame wave in farm, you're not dead. Rashok kind of felt like this as well, and they helped make this true with some 15% nerfs, some 20% nerfs to lava wave damage on Rashok. I think that's the better way to go about nerfing these bosses, rather than having to do multiple rounds of turning a mythic mechanic into a less difficult, like halfway between a mythic and a heroic version of that mechanic or whatever. I think that's my soapbox, at least.
I will say, though, that one of the reasons that I tried to raid such a high level in Mythic is because whenever I saw bosses get nerfed, I was like, I actually want to raid the pre-nerf version of these fights and kind of feel like what that looks like. So that, I mean...
Yeah, I agree with that.
Not everybody's like that, but that did push me to raid at a higher level, because I was like, wow, I want to see what does the pre-nerf version of this fight look like? And I think that, I mean, what were the examples? Like Star Augur and like Ian Il'gynoth, I think, were the examples that always came to my mind whenever I thought about stuff like that.
I mean, I've been on both sides at different points. Like, I used to be an M+ only player, and then I raided for a long time, and I recently stopped raiding again. So,
are you done raiding? Like, I think we just glossed over that.
Yeah.
Maybe, at least for the time being. I just started a new job, and I'm like ridiculously... I haven't even logged into WoW for like 2 weeks, but...
Gotcha.
Back when I was just an M+ player, I wanted bosses to be easy, just like Dorky does, and I think it's because raid is just a means to an end for us at that mindset. So like, we just go to raid, get our gear, and then go to the content we enjoy, right? But then when I was raiding and enjoying it for a few years until very recently, I really liked doing the bosses as close to the world first difficulty as possible. You know, like that feeling is very fun, and you don't want it to get nerfed until you kill the boss, like Tebble said. And so I think we've mentioned this a bunch of times, but if they get the cadence right on the nerfs, I think it hits that sweet spot for everyone. And they're usually kind of close, and I think they aim for that, but sometimes they miss the mark a little bit, like on Tindral.
And I think they've missed the mark this tier and in Sepulchre, and then in those tiers, I think it's overly punishing, right? Whereas if they undertune things like we had in Avarice, it's arguably less fun. I didn't think that Avarice was a particularly compelling tier, but it's less harmful to average cutting edge level guilds when the mark is missed too easy as opposed to too hard.
Yeah, it's less.
I prefer harder tiers, but I'm also a fucking weirdo, right?
It's a lot less fun for the people that really love raiding and really love progression, but it's a lot more fun for people that raid to get gear, and that is still like a huge set of people. Even the mythic raiders that just like being able to kill the bosses and to do that. Same, you see this in classic as well, right? Like people just they like doing the content because it gives the best gear, and whatever the content is that does the best gear, they want to do, and they don't want to bash their head into something that only Liquid and Echo can solve type problem.
I actually wonder how many of the Mythic Raider population in let's say the top 1,000 guilds these days are M+ players just raiding for gear ratio with the players that are just raid for fun. I actually really wonder what that is. I feel like there's a lot more M+ players than there used to be.
I feel like Mythic Plus is getting exponentially bigger season over season, which is, I will not complain. that is good.
All right. Let's move on to our tip of the week segment. My tip of the week is there was a cool Wowhead post I saw that featured some collectibles that you can pick up using the follower dungeon system, which I think is pretty smart. Like, if you want to get any of these kind of mount things that come in Dragonflight dungeons and you don't want to wait for 12.1 when they come back into the M+ pool or whatever, you can do that with the follower dungeon thing. I would say, if you are an M+ player, maybe wait and see if these are just all going to be the Season 4 dungeons before doing this, because maybe you can just get them from, when they're Season 4 dungeons again. But if you haven't yet collected your, Ivory Traders Autuk from, which I don't have this. I have these rings, but all on different characters, because I was playing different characters in the season where Naka Defensive and Azure Vault were... oh no, these are all from actually Season 1. These are all from Dragonflight Season 1.
These
so
are all the Season 1 ones.
I didn't get them, unluckily, on my guy in Season 1, so...
This is crazy. I have a mount that you don't have.
You got me. I need to get this. I have at least 2 of these 3, but on different characters. It's sad. But yeah, you could get these with follower dungeons is the tip, basically, which I think is pretty cool.
Okay, I have a question. Can you do an achievement run?
So most achievements are mythic, and follower dungeons are only normal currently. So no.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See, never really considered that part.
It is a bit of a bummer, although I don't think the Dragonflight achievements are too hard. Like, you could go back and do them probably with you probably solo most of them, but if you had just one other person, I think you could do it. You could do almost all of them, I think. I don't know. I don't think they do a lot of ones that require 5 people anymore, like they sometimes have. Okay. Next tip is Trell's tip.
Wait. Hold on, am I reading this right?
Okay, so speaking of follower dungeons, I'll give Jarnos a few minutes. If you're a healer and you need some food from a mage, and you don't want to try to communicate with your mage, because mages are uncommunicable. If you say one word to a mage, they're going to be like, lust? So then they press lust, right? So basically, you can go into a follower dungeon if you're a healer and get water from a mage that follows you around and then leave. Or if you just don't play with a mage at all, that's a really good way to get good healer food and water before you play.
Good comms, yeah. Incredible
great
tip.
Tips this week.
Do you always get a mage in your dungeons? Is that a guarantee, or?
Yeah, apparently it's guaranteed. People were telling me.
Well, how else are you supposed to get lost if it's not from a mage, man? Let's be real here.
That's cool. I would have guessed that it would have been a rotating.
Have mages in every dungeon.
I would have guessed it was random, you could get one of any class, right? And you just keep rolling until you get a mage. But it's sick if it's guaranteed. That's
Okay, well, Dratus, when was the last time mage wasn't meta in Mythic Plus? Let's be real. You've always had a mage.
Well, yeah, but the follower dungeons, that's different. All right, Tettles, what do we got in our clip of the week this week?
God, what was this clip of the week? Oh, yes, I remember now. You can LOS the... I don't want to say the application, but the spell queue on the Flame Shock, if you're out of line of sight whenever it's supposed to go off, it kind of works the same way...
Skycap and Crag.
Yes, the Skycap and Crag shots, where he'll try to re-queue it onto eligible targets over and over again. That's a perfect way of describing it. And then once he then picks an eligible target, then he'll put the Flame Shock debuff on you. But if you're out of LOS, you're not an eligible target, so he'll like keep queuing it up over and over again until he does find somebody else that's eligible. And so there are some classes that, like Aug Evoker and Balance Druid, that you would either be spamming Bear Form or die, like as a Balance Druid, you'd be dying as like an Aug Evoker versus the initial hit, depending on how high the key is. So there's some lapses in your like defensive coverage, and this is like a way that then you can have it, put onto a mage or put onto a potentially even like a Mistweaver monk or like a warrior with like spell reflect up, and you can actually reflect it back on the boss or diffuse it back on the boss. And so like you can kind of guarantee it to be on specific people.
Those reflects are massive too. That's actually a really good strat.
Yeah. There you go. It's a good tip.
All right.
I would say that's only a really useful tip for like high level tyrannical. I don't think that's like practical for people.
Or showing up to your friends in like a weekly 15, like look what I can do with spell reflect.
That's true.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Oh,
go LOS. I'll spell reflect this.
okay. You guys want a bonus tip of the week?
I'm listening.
The imps before Volcaros that all spawn there. If you
Yeah.
run in and like heroic leap into the middle of them as a warrior, they'll all start casting on you at the same time, and you can get a big reflect. So
You want
True.
another bonus tip?
Mhm.
If you have all of your group out of LOS and then you shockwave the maggots at the exact same time before their spits go off, and then you pop spell reflect, you will reflect all of their spits back onto them, doing an insane amount of damage.
Okay, another tip for the Volcaros trash as well. The tails that spawn that slam at you damage the mobs as well, so you can use them to help you clear the trash. It's crazy.
Okay, another
All right,
tip
so,
on that in
so
that
another
regard.
Master Reflect tip is when you leap into the middle of the casters at the end of Throne of the Tides, you can do the same thing as in the raid.
Good tip. Tell us.
Yeah, another one as well. If you get the Sentry Crushing Depths cast on you, you can spell reflect that as well, and that actually puts the heal absorb back onto the mob, doing an insane amount of damage to the mob.
That is crazy, especially good on Sanguine Week. So that is wild.
Do you want one for Maiden self damage as well? Since we're
Yeah.
talking about Friendly Fire, also, the
Yeah,
Maiden
yeah.
Orb, the Orb of Contemplation, Friendly Fire mobs.
Only the small mobs.
Only mobs that can be stunned. Yeah, that's true.
Dude, we should do a week where we just spam tips of the week.
Dude,
The whole episode.
That would be so cooked.
We gotta just like keep doing spell reflect ones because nobody can play warrior anyway. It's never meta.
I think there's like a sheet of reflectable stuff each season that usually somebody makes. I think Sense used to make one.
Yeah,
Sense
Sense makes
one.
He
it.
still
Yeah.
does, yeah. But yeah, good tech for a warrior rather than having to hear about each one individually from us. All right, let's talk about MDI. So MDI was last weekend, Group A. This coming weekend, Group B. Then there's like a weekend off, and then there's the global finals. The format is new. It's different. It is 4 teams qualifying from each of 2 groups instead of 2 teams qualifying from each of 3 groups, and then a last stand qualifying an additional 2 people or 2 teams. So twice as many teams are qualifying from each group as usual, which makes Saturday actually really high stakes. Saturday determines which 4 teams qualify and which 4 teams get eliminated. So I feel like that has been a cool change. And also I don't know, at least for me watching the games have been really sick.
I agree.
And part of that potentially is that the teams seeded 17th through 24th aren't there. And so the average match quality has gone up because higher seeded teams playing each other. Trell, did you watch the MDI this last weekend?
Yeah, I did. I found some time to tune in, and it was a good one, honestly, for especially for a non-globals MDI. Like the globals is always the best to watch, but like the global finals, I mean. But let's just say the Rise strat that Echo performed was pretty insane. Like I actually knew that you could move the portals, like you could snap the portal keepers and place a portal, but the extent to what they did with that information was nuts.
Yeah,
That's
that was kind
crazy.
of crazy. I
Yeah.
do think as well. One of the advantages of doing it like this is like since it's such high stakes early on. Some of the highest viewership weekends are actually like the first weekend of MDI, first weekend of TGP, and
That's
then
true.
the finals, right? And so, while there is less weekends of content, which is unfortunate, it's higher stakes and more enjoyable, I think, through the.
And there's going to be a TGP next
Span.
season as well, right? So we are getting like,
I
in
assume
theory. Yeah.
Do you think it's gonna be three weekends again?
Oh, I don't know.
Actually, I guess I actually don't even know the format.
Yeah, I have no idea. TGP's a little different as well. How would you do 3 weekends? I guess you could, right? Because TGP, they've at least historically done 6 teams rather than 8 to the global finals.
TGP is 6 teams, so
Yeah.
Because
So
it's
you could
impossible.
do two groups of 6, so you're only bringing in the top 12 teams
Would you ever do Would you ever just do top two from 2 groups of 6?
and then go straight
So
to a
four
4.
teams.
I
Yeah,
think
just four
that's too
teams
few,
total.
but I don't know. I guess it'd probably also still be good.
Eliminations for global finals have always felt kind of weird for TGP, right?
I just always liked
The stakes.
yeah, and I liked also the like at least seeing some like having there be the option open. Like obviously like I think 24 teams in MDI is too many, but I think that you would lose something if you didn't have like some of the teams in the 9 through 12 range or the
I think
9
16
through,
teams. I think 16 teams was good. I thought that the
think
the
so, too.
13th and the 14th seeded teams from this most recent weekend or whatever they were quite good.
Yeah.
I thought that like they were very good actually.
Yeah, so I similar like I wouldn't want to see TGP get cut down too much to cut too many teams out.
I will say it's like hard to observe 6 teams.
Yeah, that
is like
has
a
always been
problem.
the problem. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
when there are a lot of teams on, it's been harder to
That's
like,
tough. I don't know.
whatever you don't show, people are mad you're not showing. Yeah.
Oh, someone in chat reminded me the other thing that was really cool this weekend was the legendaries Ataldazar first pull. I thought that was awesome. That's like totally a Lepan move. I'm sure he was like pushing for it in his practice. But on the other hand, it was slower than Echo, I think, with their 2 pulls, right?
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
I think that's always been something that's like it's like a gotcha for new players to the high end plus scene. Is they think of something that's like innovative or cool or flashy, and they think it means faster. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Like in this case, they did something super impressive, and it was somehow not as fast as just playing clean and being able to do more focused damage on the right targets because it's a little bit easier.
I mean, that happens sometimes where like you kind of go too big. There's like too much finesse with setting up your pull, and like minimizing the amount of travel time is actually the faster thing there, and in minimizing the amount of setup and actually just holding W and just ramming the pack. Like I don't want to say it's always better, but there's a decent amount of times where that is just a superior strat, and I think that we saw that also with like. There was like a gnarl root pull. Somebody did gnarl root in the water, and then somebody did gnarl root out of the water. And the out of the water one was just faster
I remember
because
that
they just
too,
got the pack grouped up faster.
A lot of times it does come down to how efficiently you can travel, and especially in MDI where time is very condensed, like 10-minute runs instead of 25 or 30-minute runs. Like travel times is actually makes up quite a bit of your run.
I mean, that's why historically in the MDI they only used light foots or sky steps.
Yeah, I miss those, man.
Potions
You just
those
made me
potions got
sad.
gutted. Yeah.
Yeah, that is genuinely tragic. I feel like they should just buff that back up now that it's because the opportunity cost has gotten a lot higher with the 5-minute CD. Like, you still wouldn't be able to use it often, but maybe the whole group would just pot Sky Step at the start of a tall or something, and they wouldn't like that for some reason. I don't know. Okay.
Now they just use Speed Shroud.
Yeah, but that's like 30% instead of 100 and 50 or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Or however much Speed Shroud is. How about the 4 healer stuff? How'd you guys feel about the 4 DPS no healer rather?
Yeah, so I guess let's talk about comps. So the comps that we saw was Venge Demon Hunter, Wrestle Druid, Priest, Mage, Destro, Warlock. That was pretty common through most keys, pretty much all keys. Occasionally you saw Sub Rogue in Mystery Monk. Basically you saw Sub in dungeons that they couldn't mount in where Speed Trial was good. And you saw Mystery Monk in dungeons where they thought that they could out heal the incoming damage and do a larger pull than a Wrestle Druid would be able to do. So that's why they played Mystery Monk, because the healing is higher in Mystery Monk. The alternative comp, like Dryden said, was a 4 DPS comp, cutting a healer, where they basically did the exact same route as the groups with a healer, except they did that without. And obviously that's going to allow for a lot.
Did they always play Ret when there was no healer?
No, they played Aug and Boomy sometimes.
Oh, Boomy too. Okay, I forgot there was Aug too. Yeah.
It was controversial. I as a viewer, I thought it was interesting. I think that it's problematic.
Yeah. It's tough because I do think it is cool in the sense that, like, it's just nice that something different happens, right? And it's like, oh, there's, some innovation. It's like, it's not, the default. But on the other hand, it's not something you ever do on live. It's not something that any viewers are, like, relating to.
I'm sure
it's not really
healers
something
in particular.
Yeah, exactly. Like each team has a healer on it. That some of them are fine with it, but a lot of them aren't, and especially a lot of the like aspiring teams to play in it and stuff don't have a healer that either can or wants to DPS, and like that. I think it makes it too much against it as a strat, and I think that it's bad if it's ever more than like a niche option, which
dungeon.
it currently is. Right, currently it's a strong maybe not default, but like 40% of the time strategy or something like that, right? Like
yeah.
I agree with Now's take. He was talking to you guys after MDI finished, him and Miraz, and I think he said something like he would rather his healer be able to play a healer because Zaylia is so insane at the game. Like it'd be nice for him to actually show off his skills. Plus, it opens more opportunities for the teams to pull bigger and go for more risky strats because you could flex your abilities to live with a good healer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing a healer requirement again. I think Now said that as well.
I think Dranos was the one who said the healer requirement, right?
Yeah, I mean it's the only way, right? Like if you genuinely think 4 DPS is bad when it's this common, I think you gotta ban it, right? Like because the other things that people propose is they should raise the key level. Okay, the other stuff that people propose is they should change how the game works to make healing more mandatory, all that kind of stuff. All that's true. Like, yes, the dungeons, how defensive DPS specs are, how much off healing they have. I don't think that's actually really the issue. But how little rot damage these dungeons are doing to the group, I think that's the main issue. That should change. But that is something that is like on the dev end, and that's something as well that just they're gonna miss on that some amount of seasons. Like some amount of seasons, there's gonna be some factor or another that means 4 DPS is gonna be the main strategy at an MDI key level that's reasonable. So your options are either raise the key level up until it's not really an MDI key level anymore. And even so this season, like I think there's room to bring the key level up a little bit, but I don't think you can move it up by that much without it getting not MDI anymore, right? And get it into like high key, pull slow, big IO, play safe. And that is not what we want, in my opinion. And I think even if you raise the level by 1 or 2, I don't think you get rid of 4 DPS with the current dungeon design.
So they were playing 4 DPS. It happened a lot in the 23s. It didn't even happen a lot in the 22s. So right now the range is 22 to 24. Yeah. So you could bump it up 1, and it would be 23 to 25.
And that would help. Like that would reduce the amount of it by a little bit, but I don't think it'd be much.
But people were already 4 DPS in 23s anyways.
Yeah.
Now then you bump it up to 24, 25, 26. Practice becomes insane on a 26. Throne of the Tides is like a live key. Like unironically, it's just like a live key, and you're probably still 4 DPSing a Tal'Dazar. Like you don't need a healer in a Tal. Like the fundamental issue with this part of the season is that you actually just don't need a healer in a Tal'Dazar. Like what is the healer's not doing shit in there, frankly. Like in a live key, they're there to make sure that you don't die to the Sara damage. They're there to make sure that you don't that you get topped before your next hit on Yasma. That doesn't happen in a 24. That doesn't happen in a 26.
The only healing throughput in that entire key is Volcall, right?
Volcall, yeah.
I mean, you press Alter Time and you're back at 100% HP.
Right, because your DPS comp has a mage and a warlock in it, so you only have 2 DPS. Yeah, like it's so like there are a lot of ways you could fix that by fixing those parts of the dungeon, sure. But again, that's dev side. On the side of MDI, like rules and key levels, which are the main things that the MDI like admins or whatever do. I do think I think they should think about just banning the like require healer in the keys.
I think that'd probably be fine. I think that this happened in Legion. People don't remember it because it's been so long. Upper Kara, Lower Kara, and I want to say there was one other dungeon that people very regularly 40 Arcway, maybe? People very regularly 4 DPS'd.
I just remember Upper, yeah.
The Upper was the one that got all the attention, but there was a couple that people regularly 4 DPS'd, but like there are seasons that are like that, but it's
Blood Decay Leech plus what was it? 1 Windwalker and 3 rogues or something?
3 Windwalkers and
it was
a Havoc
Demon. Yeah, it was a Havoc Demon Hunter, double rogue, and a Windwalker, and you're like, yeah, these people don't need healing. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's enjoyable to watch, but I think it's I think it's problematic, and I don't think it's like. I would hate being it. I would hate watching it if I was a healer personally. I would be kind of annoyed.
All right. How about, I guess, any other tech we want to talk about? We talked a little bit about Rise and the first pull of Taldazar. Waycrest Manor.
There's a new Gorger spot in Waycrest Manor.
Yeah, let me pull up the clip.
Inside of the Raw room, if you stand on top of these plates, you don't get leapt on by Gorgers. Now the MDI team, since they're running a full ranged comp, they'll also outrange maggot spits. So maggots only spit within 30 yards. So what the MDI team, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen right there, what they're doing is they're stacked on top of these plates, so they're not able to get left on by the Gorger, but they're also out of range of the maggots, which is an advantage of the all-range comp. But it's still pretty good just from the Gorger side of things, too.
Have they fixed the Taldazar spots?
Which ones?
The ones we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, where you stand like on the stairs or whatever and make the Juggernauts charge. There's a few that work
spots now.
Yeah, there's a few that work by having the Z-axis below you be far enough below you that when it charges to it, it doesn't hit. But a lot of the old traditional spots that you'd stand on where they just have no path to you don't work anymore. You can't stand in a no path spot. And so you need the mob to still try and charge at you and just fail to hit you by being too far off of you vertically. Or you can stand, if you're a Resto Druid, you can stand in one of the no path spots, jump off, summon a Treant, and then jump back on or whatever, and get them to charge your Treant instead.
True.
Did you get tech?
There are also a couple Sard spots that people found. I don't know if you know anything about those, Trell, but there's
I know all those. I was wondering if they fixed those because I think it's funny that if you find tech like this late enough in the season, the devs stop kind of paying attention eventually because they're working on the next season.
They're probably working, they're probably working on their own shit.
And so if we would have found, this isn't going to happen, this is unrealistic, but if all the content creators didn't find any of the spots at the very beginning of the season at Tettles, then none of that stuff would have gotten fixed.
I got tens of dollars. It's like whenever Google has a hackathon? Yeah, Blizzard had a hackathon for their dungeons for tech.
Yeah, they bring in the impersonator hacker Tettles, TTV Tettles to break their game for them.
Yeah, white hat programmers, whatever.
I get paid out whatever every bug I find.
I mean, you kind of do. You have to make a video on it. Then there was also we were talking about a little bit, but the Gnarl Root in the water tech, where this is just general Sanguine tech as well, where you can have mobs in water and not get Sanguine healed. But Gnarl Root in particular roots you and then puts the leaves on you that silence and damage you. But if you are in the water, those are enough below you in the water that they don't actually hit you, which is sick.
So that works with any Z-axis spot in that dungeon. There's a lot of other roots and branches and other things that you could potentially also stand on where you're not getting silenced, but you obviously take the damage from the root. So it's not the most practical thing at a high level, but it's not bad. I tried it the last Fortified week on a 28, and we got kind of owned, but we lived.
All right. Anything else on MDI that anybody would like to discuss? Going once? Going twice?
Nope. Watch the MDI next week.
Nope.
Sold. We will move on to our Q&A section. But first, we get to thank our supporters over on the Patreon. They include... Okay, Points of Stratos could do a great Valley Girl accent for this. God, what's the Valley Girl accent again? Anybody? Do any of you guys have one? It's the like totally, right? Like the...
oh my god.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
Good cook. Yes.
All right, bestie. I know you didn't get your legendary yet, so you're going to need to step up the affirmations and positive thinking until you manifest that axe. A 5-man boss once said, "It is Prince Arthas I want, not you." Mal'Ganis. That's got to be Mal'Ganis. Right, from Calling of Stratholme. Still no Lego. Still sad. I still believe the bad luck protection is a placebo.
It is. It is a placebo.
It was pretty much. The bad luck protection wasn't doing much. Never knew Jaw, King of Skills, Chromed, Trekkie, Chewy. I got Legendary and I hate Super Bloom. Yep. I actually finished the Super Bloom one before the Rares one, though. The Rares one is more annoying. For
Is
me,
the
at least.
fastest way to do the rarest one do the swarm or whatever?
Yeah, you can get it from the swarm, but that's also annoying. I was just trying to get it because you can get it from the last mob of the super bloom as well. You can tag that one counts, but that only gives you like by the time you finish your super bloom ones, you'll only have gotten like halfway through the rare ones that way, and I just didn't want to
Gotcha.
do them in the wrong order, right, and be missing value. But now I still have to go back and get a bunch of rares from around. I'm still thinking maybe just logging in every at the hour and 15-minute mark and just getting the super bloom rare guaranteed. Do that a couple more times. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Salting Seni, ZivXX, Necris, Tankdill, Nevuk, Eevee, Year of the Spear is extended to 2023, bless up. No Trick, I forgot I was subbed here, Dimat, Rework Mistweaver, Nyx, Delete Gaming, Master of Fyr'alath, the Dream Render, congrats. Gallic, Brusive, Dratnos Abyss, Nah, I'd Deplete, Insanity, Xena, Rogue's not good enough for Prog, but still bad enough to be sat for SLG, bless up. Red Color, youtube.com/workbringer, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Nevermore, #1 Simski for Trelsky. Billy finally got a legendary on his alt. We all know Mog is the real end game. Warrior Rework Wen, Sife, Pone, Windwalker Monks deal with nerfs by rolling with punches. Thesaurus.com is a powerful tool. The Marsh Hare, my raid buff is my great personality and good looks. I play Ellie Shaman. Thank you for listening to the Titanforge Podcast, as brought to you by Daddy Dratty, Grampy Trelsky, and the Tettles Effect. Big Ed Smallbrain, King's Honor fellow horde, it's me, your newest guild member. Juniper, Tettles spreading misinformation on the internet again. Jato and Honeychunk
Classic.
forever. Chauncey, that moment your tank says, now where's my range at during Jade Serpent Dragon Boss and bricks your key. Feral Druids in the MDI, you've got to be kidding me. There wasn't actually any in the cup, it's sad. There was in the time trials, though. Zalia played it in their time trial run of one of the dungeons, so, sort of is. Oh, you don't have that yet? Boom. Sire Dematicus versus Smolderon Weasley, 1v1 no e-girl. The small mammal living in Dratnos' shirt. Sapphire. Is Tindril the hardest penultimate boss of all time? Definitely the most annoying, right? Wrong. That's not the most annoying. It might be one of the
Fallen
hardest.
Avatar-
Fallen Avatar is
more.
probably harder, and Stone Legion Generals is more annoying.
Yeah, yep, agreed.
It's probably the same difficulty as Fallen Avatar. Honestly, that one was
Yeah.
that one was a massive weak aura check. Whenever people didn't really have weak auras too, which is
Yeah, like we would smash that if we went back in time and wiped our minds or whatever, but wiped our memories of that fight, but had our current,
well,
level of
the
prep
damage
and-
check. The damage
yeah.
check was also nuclear on that fight too. But the juggling the beam thing was
Yeah. Want my frames on Tindril, another Tindril one. I'm losing my raid to Neltharion weak auras. I can definitely believe it's not butter. Rock and Stone, which I've learned is a Deep Rock Galactic thing. And there's a new Deep Rock Galactic like Survivors game out that a lot of people are liking. So if you're into Survivor games or Deep Rock Galactic or something, I think that one's doing really well out there. So I'm sure.
And
this
yeah, I'm
person's already
really
checked it out.
looking forward to the Blizzard survival game.
shut the fuck up, Trial.
No, this is Survivors game, like Vampire Survivors or those ones, that genre.
Is that TV show with Jeff Probst?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dratnos made me afraid to eat bread. I would do anything for gear, but I won't pug that. Proud new owner of the legendary axe, but it's been over 4 hours and I'm still bricked up. Should I call my doctor? Yes. And Francis, thank you all for the support. All right. Our first question comes from Max in Discord that says, do you think Fated Season would be a good time to test 10-man mythic raiding? For context, I've been an officer in guilds that raid 2 days a week. My experience is that the hardest part of mythic raiding at that level was essentially HR, not boss strategy. Raiding 2 days a week means it takes 8 weeks or more to get cutting edge, by which time we'd gone through multiple iterations of our roster.
I think that's accurate. First of all, the HR
yes.
comment.
You know what? Yes, I think Fated would be a good time to test this. I am not confident that 10-player Mythic would be good, and I guess I'm a little bit worried that it would be one of those things that's like less fun, but they can't roll back because we get used to it or whatever. And like there are people that make these arguments about things like LFR or Solo Shuffle or whatever, where it's like this was actually negative, but you can't take it away now.
Does that kill your guild though?
During Fated season?
Yeah.
No. If anything, it would probably make my life a lot easier because there like 10 people would love to be like, all right, I'm out of here this season. You guys do Fated. We're chilling.
There are a lot of people that, but like at the same point, I doubt it's going to go down to one tank, right? So you're not splitting up into 2 separate groups.
No, you're not. But like,
Yeah.
I think more than half of my guild would just like to not would be happy to just not raid Faded.
Personally, I would not be. I would not want to raid Faded this season either. But I'm also not.
Like, I would still
target
be down to
audience
do
for
it.
it.
I would be down to do Faded, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in my guild that would just take a break and be pretty happy about it.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's true of a lot of cutting edge guilds, so I think it would probably be fine.
I think that's true for my guild too. Yeah.
Interesting idea. I'm just down for them to try something big, some big swing at
I
like the
rating.
structure.
Yeah, rating. I feel like is getting a bit stale. And I think
Yeah.
that they
I mean, I love
not,
raiding.
not
I
like
think
the
it's
fights
great.
are bad. Not the fights are bad. Yeah.
I just think Faded season, like, I think Faded raids are such a nothing burger that they should just try something crazy. Like, just because there's just no downside. Like, what's the worst that happens? You screwed up Faded season. It was already screwed up. It was a Faded season.
I mean, Blizzard hit a banger with the Faded Mythic Plus season in season 4,
Yes.
where they tested out Legacy Dungeons and they somehow just gave us a really sick seasonal affix too. So like that was like,
The last seasonal affix.
I mean, that was well, less good seasonal affix.
All right, next question comes from Raichu in Discord that says, many people have ideas for fixes on key depletion, but I think the best suggestion is to make is just being able to re-roll the key you get when you time a dungeon. It's so simple, so it's easy to implement. It has minimal impact on civilian players, and it'll have a net positive impact on the amount of time spent on homework keys.
So that's
just being able to re-roll
key level.
your own key when it goes up, rather than just only if it was somebody else's key.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
probably make
I'm
it
down.
not have anything to do with key level
I'm
as
down.
well. I could be down for that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they wanted to avoid going into a +2 to re-roll your 27 or whatever until you got a good key or whatever. Which kind of makes sense to me. But I think giving it like a +2 range or whatever, like if your key is within 2 key levels of the key that's being done, like I feel like that would fix that.
That's probably more acceptable, right? Because the issue is like, and this is always going to be a problem. Some keys probably just aren't going to be doable on a 32, but they're doable, you know. But you have a 32, and you're like, well, this one of the tide's never getting done. What am I supposed to do with this?
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I'm not sure how much of the way there it gets us, but this person genuinely might be right. It might get you most of the way there.
Yeah, and I mean that also doesn't. That's not like a lot of extra dev work for Blizzard.
Right, exactly. They've identified a fix that is not a new like vendor or currency or something like that, which
exactly
is good.
True.
All right, next question comes from Andy in Discord that says, as a rank 200 to 400 2-day guild, we struggle so much with roster, especially due to raid buff meta. It is a nightmare having people re-roll. For example, our Brewmaster tank is swapping to Blood Decay for Fyr'alath, well, then our Resto Druid has to swap Mistweaver, and then our Shadow Priest has to play Druid. Maintaining all raid buffs combined with boss-specific requirements such as grips, mass grip is brutal. What are top 100 guilds' experience with this?
Oh, remove raid buffs, please.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. It's not even for raid for me, and I agree that that's super annoying for you in that raid situation. But even for M+, it's like, oh, you're missing the fort buff from a priest, a 3% DR buff, Heart of the Wild, damage and DR buff. Oh, you're just 10% squishier than other groups. Like, it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. My experience with it is it's not too bad during prog for us usually, because we just have, specifically our tanks are ready to switch to any of them and then fill those buffs, and then we have like a plan for every other raid buff. And usually like I sort of have a backup plan ready for each raid buff as well in my head if something, happens to like if somebody can't show up on a certain character or something like that. Like, I mean, we're going to be sort of screwed depending on who it is, but for the most part, like, our druid being a balanced druid is just like a safe bet, right? Your druid being a Resto Druid is not as much of a safe bet because, sometimes your healer comp does not support Resto Druid. That's much more common than your DPS comp not supporting a balanced druid.
So here's the thing, at like a top 100 world level, there's kind of some expectations for people. First and foremost, and it depends on the guild, not everybody's going to have alts, but a lot of the top 100 world guilds do splits.
Mm-hmm.
At minimum, most of the top 100 world guilds have about, half the roster with like ready to go alts depending on the tier. At a top 100 world level, the minimum expectation though for tanks is to have 2 or 3 tanks prepared and to always have a Blood Death Knight in some capacity ready to go. Because every single season there's a Blood DK. And most seasons it's like a Brewmaster book and a Blood DK season, right? Together. And so you need ideally both tanks play both Brewmaster and Blood DK to some proficient level. And then they have, Paladin, DH, Warrior, Druid coverage between the two of them.
I always tell people that they're like, what's the best like 2 tanks to have prepared for a raid flexing? I'd say Brew, Blood DK. That's always
Brew, Blood DK. Combo. It's always Brew and Blood DK. Yep, that is always it.
100%. Yeah.
And then Paladin is good a lot of seasons, but like Paladin's it's always Brew and Blood DK.
Like third top, I'd say for that. Yeah. In fact, if you picked any 2 of those 3, I think you're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking about the raid buff situation, though, also if you're a guild that has like a very tight roster and it's hard to make those swaps, I think giving up a raid buff sometimes is okay, especially if you're not like top 100 level trying to beat the nerfs to the bosses. Like you can take out monk debuff and it will barely affect your damage. Like that debuff is actually so fake these days.
Yeah, that is. Some are more fake than others, right? Like missing, depending on which one you're missing, it's more or less damage, but. Yeah, I mean, depending on whether you're trying to kill bosses before or after a nerf, like, depending on the nerf or whatever, like that, you might find that you just have more than enough numbers and you just need to do the mechanics, and that, isn't something that a raid buff necessarily will help you with, especially the offensive ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then their next question is a follow up here, which is how does this affect M+ groups? Feel like I see mostly good raid buff classes every season in M+.
I feel like most seasons Mythic Plus raid buffs don't matter, and that's because the scale of the raid buff is obviously not really proportional in 20-player content as it is in 5-player content, just because you have fewer people in the group. So, classes do 20 to 30% more damage than other classes in Mythic Plus, whereas, the average contributor in a raid is only 7.5 to about 9.5% of damage is like a damage dealer. So bringing a raid buff that increases your group's damage by even like 2.5%, say, I mean, that's like a pretty big, or like it's Mark of the Wild, so it's 3% damage just flat. That's obviously like a big contributing factor, but in Mythic Plus, if there's a spec that does 30% more damage, your 3% damage doesn't matter. This is a season that I feel like raid buffs have played the largest impact, and it's by a lot. The defensive raid buffs have always been the best for Mythic Plus, though.
So that's the thing, right? Your argument is good for offensive raid buffs, but all the defensive raid buffs get the same value in raid and M+, right? And in fact, in M+, more players run into one-shotty checks than in raid, right? Like that happens. That's more of what M+ is about than what raid is about. So Druid and Priest, since that has been true, have been, and since Druid got Mark of the Wild back, have been dominant like every season, right? Like there's been a Druid and a Priest every season because those are the defensive raid buffs. The offensive raid buffs are definitely, you can basically just think of them as like a little bonus.
That's part of the class.
For the class,
that is like,
right?
Yeah. That's basically the class. Like that's not the raid buff. Whereas
exactly.
I mean, Devo is also fucking nasty. 3% DR. Trophic Poison is the worst one by far, but it's because Trophic Poison doesn't work on environmental damage.
Right, and it's hard to, it's, I mean, it's still good, but...
It's still good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 3.6% DR, I think, with the
if
improved.
You have the improved, yeah.
Yeah, the defensive raid buffs have been super noticeable for me this expansion. I feel like they've been more required than ever. Like, I remember back in Season 1, I played with a Shadow Priest for a little bit, for like some cutting edge keys, and I was like, okay, I just need to play with a priest because now our whole group survives everything on this higher key level where we didn't before. And then like that plus Resto Shaman that season was an insane amount of HP.
Dude, I just remember us swapping our comp up from some weird shit into Resto Shaman Shadow Priest, and I was like, oh wow, I don't get one shot in Ruby Life Pools 26 anymore. Now I only get one shot in Ruby Life Pools 27, which is like, it was insane.
It was like plus 2 key levels right there. Like just having those buffs alone. Same thing with this season, and to an extent last season. It was more the classes last season, I'd say, but the raid buffs were still pretty impactful.
Are you okay with how impactful raid buffs are in 5-mans? I feel like most of the time they don't matter.
I hate how impactful
I feel like most of the time they don't matter, though, so it's like hard for me to be like, oh yeah, this is like a huge deal.
I don't mind the offensive ones at all, but I do think the defensive ones are
Problematic.
especially when you're playing one of those squishy classes and it's like that whether you can live or not, whether you have to line or not and Throne of the Tides or whatever is based on if you're playing with a priest or not. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I hate that.
It's not very fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Would you rework raid buffs? I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like we talk about this every so often, but yes.
Yeah. Or at least add something to make it more fair, like scrolls at a lower value or a menu and M plus to give your group extra raid buffs if you don't have those classes present.
I mean, in raid, I mean, clearly Andy was having a similar issue, right? Where he has to have his brewmaster reroll, so then they have to have somebody reroll to Mistweaver, and then they have to somebody reroll to Druid. Like that's like just because they needed Blood Decay, they have 3 people rerolling. Tragic.
All right. That is going to be it then for us this week. That's the end of our show. We will be back, not next week, but the week after, with another one. But yeah, check out MDI this weekend. And yeah, later, gamers.
GG's. Thanks for watching.
Later. Goodbye.